But we have our cross-off teams in the NFL, and cross-off teams just guys who we're just out on completely. This is the list that we have so far, and tell me what you think. The Giants, who sit at 2-10, Saints 2-9, Texans 6-5, Jets 2-9, Titans 1-10, Bengals 3-8, Falcons 4-7, Dolphins 4-7, Cardinals 3-8, Raiders 2-9, the Browns 3-8. I broke it down in a few categories. Let me know what you think. Teams I feel great about: Giants, Saints, Jets, Titans, Raiders, Browns, Dolphins, Falcons. Out on them completely. Do you think that they're that's safe to say that those teams are all cross off? Or
yeah, those teams are all gone.
Teams that I'm on the fence about. Hear me out. The Texans sit now at 6-5, which when we did this list last time, the Texans just lost CJ Stroud. Davis Mills was going to come in for now. It's been a 3-game stretch, and I was like, they're dead. They go on a 3-game win streak during this period. They have a great defense that helped them stay afloat. Davis Mills did his thing. They're getting healthy at the right time on defense and offense. You're getting CJ Stroud back. They are now, could they potentially round into form late in the season? They're sitting third in the division. They're off this 3-game win streak. The remainder of their games are Colts, Chiefs, Cardinals, Raiders, Chargers, and then Colts again. I'm giving them the 2 wins against the Cardinals and the Chargers. So that puts them at 8 wins.
Yeah.
Do you think that I should just help myself right now and take the Texans off of my cross-off list?
They're not beating any of those other teams.
Really?
Unless the Colts hit their guys out last week.
So real quick, Colts, Chiefs,
lose. Yep,
Cardinals.
No, they beat the Cardinals. They beat the Cardinals and the
Raiders.
Yep, they beat those 2.
Chargers.
They lose.
And then Colts again. So you're sitting here saying that they'll finish the season at 8-9.
Yeah.
You don't think they split against the Colts?
Unless the Colts sit those guys the last week. Mm-mm.
Okay, so that's interesting. So in that situation, they would then miss the playoffs. What's your hesitancy about this Texans team, where it seems like you're really not too much in on them?
Oh man, I mean everything you said. I mean they're coming into form at the right time, but I mean they just haven't shown they haven't shown it, right? And the Colts are good, right? I want to preface the teams that I said they're going to lose to. They need the wins, right? So there's not going to be like, well, if we lose, blah, blah, blah. Like the Chiefs, they need the wins. The Chargers, keep the Chiefs at bay, they need the wins, and the Colts, they're going to be going for that number 1 seed. They need the wins. So I just think those teams are not only playing better, yeah, they're better and they're healthier, but they need the wins. Like they're playing hungry dog teams. What do you think?
They're playing for their lives in the playoffs. Like it's not a guarantee that the Chargers and the Chiefs are making the playoffs at this point. Those are kitchen sink games for them down the stretch to be able to make it into the playoffs. So I agree with you. So I came into this thinking this was a bad call. Do you think that? So you think that I should keep them crossed off? And the second question that I wanted to ask you is, with all of this, is now that we're in a stretch now, Davis Mills came in for this 3-game stretch, obviously did his thing, and now went on a 3-game win streak. CJ Stroud is due for a payday. They obviously have him for a 5th year. They can get his 5th year. They could franchise tag him. Do you think that if he comes in down the stretch and blows this opportunity for them to potentially make the playoffs after this 3-game win streak, do you think that there's any hesitancy or pause of a decision that could be potentially made this offseason where he could go after that $250 million contract? Or do you think that there's a world where the Texans could just say, we're going to take that 5th year option and we might franchise tag you for a year and slow play it, because it is starting to become a distant memory of what CJ Stroud has done in that first year of his career compared to what he has done the last 2 years. I know that they've gone and won some playoff games. I know that the franchise is more relevant than ever, but you can't sit here and say that it hasn't been off the back of that defense and what D'Amico Ryan brings to the table. What do you think about all that?
I think the only thing that could really derail him from getting paid this offseason is if when he comes back, these games are blowouts. If they're not competitive. If they're competitive and they lose by a full 6
They're
points,
gonna
a touchdown.
they're gonna be competitive no matter what because of this defense.
Well, as long as they're competitive, CJ Stroud's going to get his money.
What if
CJ
the
Stroud,
offense looks like shit?
if the offense looks like shit, then they're going to have to reconsider something.
Okay.
And they may franchise tag him. Is that
Okay.
kind of your thought process as well, or do you think he's going to get paid?
I think that what could potentially happen. I laid it out in this stretch here. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have 6 games right now. They sit at 6-5. They put themselves in position to at least make the playoffs. This is a team who's made the playoffs the last 2 seasons and has won a playoff game on top of that. You expect a team like that to continue to take steps forward, not take steps backwards. There's nothing that has changed within this infrastructure. The defense is still the same. The quarterback is still the same. The coach is still the same. If the quarterback play is what's holding them back from getting over that hump, why? You look at what's happened across the league the last few years where it's like, there's a bunch of teams who think that they have a guy. The Cardinals think that they have a guy. They prematurely pay Kyler Murray 5 years, $242 million. The Jaguars think that they have a guy in Trevor Lawrence. They pay him 5 years, $250 million. The Dolphins think that they have a guy. They have Tua Tagovailoa, 5 years, $250. The 49ers think that they have a guy with Brock Purdy. Give him 5 years, $250 million. At what point does this trend stop where these quarterbacks who are playing at above average level, why do they have so much power in negotiations? Why is it that they are able to just go and sit down and say, yep, I'm going to reset the market? Why should Trevor Lawrence has done nothing in his career to be able to go and reset the market, and he went and did it. So at what point do we see that dial back where you see a few teams now who are stuck with quarterbacks on bad contracts? We saw it with Russell Wilson in Denver. We saw it with the Giants and Daniel Jones, and then all of the ones that I just named currently, and we'll see how that plays out this offseason. Why is it that if there's any question in your mind as a front office, why would you sit there and be like, you know what, let's just give him the money and we'll figure it out from there? What you have options. Like I said, you have that 5th-year tag where you have yourself an extra year. Then you don't even have to pay him the year after that. You can franchise tag him for 2 years after that original 5th-year option on that rookie deal. Why is there such an idea where you need to rush into a long-term contract with a quarterback that you could probably have some questions around?
I want to see kind of where you think CJ Stroud falls, right? Because we've had this conversation, obviously not on air, but privately, right? Going into next year, all the information you have right now, who would you rather quarterback your team? Who are you saying is more of a guy? Bryce Young or CJ Stroud?
I think Bryce Young has proven that he can have a more prolific offense than CJ Stroud.
So you're taking Bryce Young over CJ Stroud next year if you're a GM.
Yeah, I think so. 1 year, I mean, you saw the highs of what Bryce Young could do. I think he's shown that he could have higher highs than what CJ Stroud could do.
That's interesting. So, by that logic, then they didn't pay him. But I think he's going to get paid. I think he's going to get paid. Like I said, I don't think they beat the Chargers. I don't think they beat the Chiefs. Those guys, Chiefs are. I'm sure we might talk about them. Chiefs, they're fighting for their life. So, I mean, everyone's fighting for their lives. I just think they have better situations and better teams to get in than the Texans.
Okay. We'll talk. Hey, we'll extend this one more segment after this, and we'll talk about the Chiefs. The other team that I have here on my list is the 3-8 Bengals. And I know you're sitting here thinking, like, off the rip, like, why the hell would you think that in any way, shape, or form? Joey B is obviously back healthy. The North stinks. I texted this to Andrew earlier today, and I'll read it off to you because I think one of the biggest frauds that we have in the league currently, it's the Steelers. The Steelers are sitting at 6-5. They play the Bills, Baltimore, Miami, Lions, Cleveland, Baltimore. Let's just give them the 2 wins against Miami and Cleveland, which I'm not going to sit here and say that those are layups and they're just going to win those. That would put them at under 500 and they miss the playoffs. The Ravens sit at 5-5 currently. They haven't looked good all season. Lamar's clearly hurt. Like, is there a world where having Joe Burrow back and them just like being able to just be in these high scoring affairs and potentially squeak out some wins? Could they play spoiler down the stretch for some of these teams, or do you think that there's a possibility that they could potentially put themselves in a position to be over 500 and make the playoffs?
I think the answer is no for both. I think the answer is a clear no. They're not going to spoil. Yeah, they stink. They're not going to spoil. They're not going to and a few things you just said. I think they're not going to spoil it for anyone. They're not going to make the playoffs. Joe Burrow should be concerned about his future in Cincinnati. And I think the Steelers are going to be in.
Okay. So I disagree with you on the Steelers. I think the Steelers have that little bit of they're not a cross-off team. I don't have them as a cross-off team yet. They wouldn't be on this list. But just like personal bias, I guess, or hatred towards the Steelers, I think that they don't get it done.
Mike Tomlin gets it done.
In past history, we'll see this year. That's why they're not on the cross-off list, though. And this is why you're here. You confirmed my thoughts. I was just playing devil's advocate in a way. I agree with you about the Bengals. I think that they could have some fun games on offense, but ultimately I think they stink. So let's just keep them. So we're keeping the Texans and the Bengals on the cross-off list. You're confirming this, correct?
Confirming it, yep.
Okay. There's a few teams that I want to add to this list, and let me know what you think. There's two teams. One is the 4-7 Minnesota Vikings, where they are at a crossroads currently of making probably one of the all-time bad decisions this offseason by moving on from Sam Darnold after winning 14 games and letting him walk out of the building, seeing him flourish in Seattle, doing his thing, and now having J.J. McCarthy as their quarterback, who is statistically worse than Jamarcus Russell was, who is probably an all-time quarterback bust ever. One, what do you think of all of that, the situation that's playing out in Minnesota, and do you think that it's probably safe to say that we can add them to the cross-off list?
I would definitely add them to the cross-off list. The Vikings are done. They have no chance. And it's their offense is horrendous. Their defense is they're not as bad, right? The defense gets the job done, and you can rely on them. But if you can't score, which they can't score, then you're not going anywhere, right? What's your biggest takeaway from their offense that kind of besides JJ McCarthy, right? What's your biggest takeaway that kind of you think hinders them?
I think that what JJ McCarthy brings to the table as a quarterback is the Jalen Hurts model in our head that we kind of talk about, like where it's like if everything isn't perfectly tailored, it's not going to look good. I think what holds this team back like infinitely is they have a very weak run game. The offensive line's not that great. They've been banged up all year, having kind of like a rotating cast of guys, and then they brought in a whole new group of guys. And you say it often, like you can bring in guys who have been good other places, but like just because it's new doesn't mean it's going to be good. And having a group of guys who have played a ton of snaps together is like the most tell-all way that you're going to have like a good offensive line. And to just have a rotating cast all season, you're just not going to be good. So I think that is probably the biggest issue, where it's like the run game isn't clicking. That makes JJ McCarthy do more. The more that you have to have JJ McCarthy do, the worse your offense is going to look.
I agree. And actually, I just pulled up their last remaining games. They play the Commanders. I think they beat the Commanders. They play the Cowboys. I think they lose. They play the Giants. I think they beat the Giants. Lions, they're going to lose on Christmas Day, and then they also play the Packers. That's a loss. So I think they only win 2 more games, in my opinion, of their last 5. So they're definitely on the cross-off list.
Real quick, before we move on to the last team, do you think that they give JJ McCarthy another chance next season, or do you think that they're probably going to look to move on from him and bring somebody else in?
I think if they have the opportunity to draft someone, I think they're gonna take an opportunity to draft a quarterback, but I don't think they're gonna go out in free agency and bring in a starter. If that makes sense.
What
I don't think
about
they're
what
gonna
about
go
a
head high.
potential trade? What about a potential trade?
I don't think they trade either.
What about a Kyler Murray?
I think that would be wise, but I don't think they're willing to give up on a JJ McCarthy yet.
So you think that they're going to stick by him for at least one more season? Interesting. I also think the same thing. The last team that I have to add to the cross-off list today is the 3-8 Washington Commanders, which last season I didn't believe the hype. They obviously then get to a point where it was undeniable to believe the hype. They make it to the NFC Championship. Going into the season, we made a video going back to the preseason where it said pump the brakes on the Washington Commanders. Gave a statistic where their historic 3rd and 4th down conversion rate was just off the charts. And the last time we saw something like that was the year 2000 with the Indianapolis Colts. And the next season, the Indianapolis Colts were then 6 games worse. You go ahead to this season, regardless of the health of Jaden Daniels, which hasn't been great, and obviously is going to play a role in this roster is bad. They jumped the gun. It's old. The playmakers aren't very good. The running game sucks. And then you're obviously not able to keep Jaden Daniels healthy, which is the most important thing in the entire thing. But having a bad defense, having a bad O-line, having a bad receiving core, having a bad everything across the board, other than just having a supremely talented young quarterback, they really jumped the gun with some of the moves that they made this year. And I think that 3-8, did I think that they'd be this bad? No, I thought that they probably win like 6 or 7 games, but where we're at currently right now, they are in the dark days, and it looks like that it's not going to end anytime soon.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think they deserve to be on the cross-off list. I'm actually surprised you didn't put them on there a week or two ago. Old roster.
I was holding out hope.
Yeah, old roster. They can't get it done. The division is pretty competitive. They have a pretty tough schedule. Especially moving ahead, not having a starting quarterback. They don't really have any like stars on the team that you can rally around right now, and just like hold on tight to try and get them to the finish line. So I mean, I think they should be on the cross-off list a few weeks ago.
Yeah, look at how like Debo's old, Terry McLaurin's old, Zach Ertz is their tight end. Like, it's not a good group. It's not a good group at all. And like, even if you look, it's like, oh, like in 3 years, none of those guys are going to be on the roster other than Jaden Daniels. That's a real problem that they need to address, obviously, in this offseason. So you're right. I probably should have had them on, but hey, I took the Commanders against the Lions when they were 9.5-point underdogs in the playoffs last year. And Jaden Daniels got me paid like 6 weeks in a row. So I was holding out a little bit of hope for the guys who made me a ton of money last season, but you're completely right. This team should have been on the cross-off list weeks ago.
I will say I am a really big Dan Quinn supporter, so I hope they can, fix things this offseason and, get things back and running with a healthy Jaden Daniels. His defense is hit and miss, whether it's really good or average or below average, right? He kind of sticks to his guns on that, but I am a big supporter of his, and I hope they're successful. But this year, they're done. They're done.
All right, so we're gonna talk about the Chiefs before Bo heads out of here today. But the final cross-off list that we have today is Bengals 3-8, Vikings 4-7, Commanders 3-8, the Miami Dolphins at 4-7, the New York Jets at 2-9, the Cleveland Browns at 3-8, the Tennessee Titans at 1-10. The Vegas Raiders at 2-9, the Giants at 2-10, the Falcons at 4-7, the Saints at 2-9, and the Arizona Cardinals at 3-8.
I just spit it. Good girl.